All right, I'd like to call this work session of the Berea Planning and Zoning Commission, Tuesday, December 27, 2022, to order. First, preliminary plat, 413 Oak Street. Consideration of 41 townhouses by Arbor Woods LLC. Where would you like to start, Amanda?
Hello.
Will you turn your microphone on, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
And please introduce yourself.
I'm Pat Sowers, and I own Arbor Woods LLC, and we're just bringing, I guess it's 41 lots or townhomes, I believe. They'll be more like, for lack of a better way to tell, some small homes. There'll be some 2 stories. There's 3 different designs. There's a little 2-story, and then there's 2 different ranches. It's private community. The streets will be private. There will be individual landowners. We were hoping for a price point under 180 to allow some other, maybe some more affordable housing. It's not a true affordable, it's not a Kentucky housing project or anything like that, but we're trying to develop something that would, with the way things are going and the rates and stuff, that maybe some more people would be interested. It does have some green area. It has a retention pond on the plat, you'll see, and that's about it. Anyway, I think the property is zoned R3. We're using R1 TA in the, which is allowed in the R3. We kind of thought that there's lots of apartments going right now, so maybe some people could buy individually would be helpful to the community. Questions, concerns?
So from a staff perspective, we emailed the development plan, preliminary plat to you guys, and you should have it in front of you. So again, it's the request is for a 41 lot townhome development, and let me see if I can. So the location is, this house at 413 Oak Street has now been demolished.
That's correct.
This is a approximately 4-acre tract of land, and so they are proposing 2 roads, basically one that will connect both Oak Street and Morning View, and then another road off of Oak Street. And so I'm gonna flip over to the layout. It's a little hard to see these plans when we get it this small, but you can see 2 connection points on Oak Street and 1 on Morning View. We have been through the development review team process. As Patrick said, it is zoned R3, but they are using R1T setbacks, which is specifically for townhomes, and it is an allowable land use to use that. It's actually a footnote in that table that says if you are going to build townhomes, that you shall use the R1T setbacks in whatever zone it is. So they have met those requirements for R1T. For the dirt team approval, they would be asking for a waiver. That is specifically for driveway locations, and because of the nature of the townhouse development, we have a regulation that says that you should not have a driveway closer than 50 feet along this curb. And so they do have a few lots here that would not meet that regulation. And so I've taken it to our Public Works Department. They did agree that they would sign off on building permit applications for that, because it is a private, will be a private development. So in other words, we're not gonna have, school buses trying to go down that road. You know, those kids will come out here to the road. And, you know, we wouldn't really see parking on these streets. And so to be able to get those driveways in here, they would need one variance with this approval. And then they also submitted all their plans in accordance with the deadline that I gave them for this meeting, but we unfortunately did not have people because of the holidays here to review those. So they would be seeking a contingent approval based on sewer and water approvals from Division of Water and stormwater approval from our city engineer. So those plans have been submitted. I just haven't heard back from the reviewing, the agencies that review those for technical aspects.
So one of the waivers you're talking about, under general notes, number 24, a waiver of the 50, is that 50 feet? Distance between main roadway pavement and the edge of proposed roadway must be obtained with permission of Public Works.
So that really affects these lots along Oak Street, basically these four right here, where when you turn off of Oak Street, you have that driveway within 50 feet there.
Then what was your other contingency?
Sewer and water approval
Okay.
and stormwater approval. And I just think it's important to bring up to the commission that, you know, when these plans come before us, people want to get their approvals, then they want to be able to keep going through these steps. And so, so all three of these that we have before us tonight will be seeking contingent approvals. But again, I think that we shouldn't hold them up until late January, just because of the holidays and because people weren't here to be able to review their plans. So I wanted to basically kind of keep them moving in the process.
I think once they get that approval, I think we still got to send them to the state for their, and who knows how long that takes.
Right, yeah.
So that could be anywhere to the end of January to the end of, who knows, February.
So
They have,
all these roads that you're building,
yes, sir.
are these all on the smaller side of things? I know where you're not wanting any street parking or anything like that. Are these 12 foot, 10 foot?
They're 24, I believe, is that right, Drew? 23? 25 back to back.
Okay.
It's big enough to get a fire truck to get in, go around.
There's some off-street parking, I think, in the green space down there.
Okay.
I will mention, though, it is the right-of-way width. Our minimum right-of-way width is 50 feet. And now that's not pavement width, that's just overall right-of-way width. And so it is not wide enough to meet the city standards. So the streets would never be accepted into the city's maintenance. And what we will do to make that clear is have them put that on the final plat and have them put that in their deed restrictions.
Yes.
And as part of when they set up their homeowners association, they will be responsible for upkeep of that detention basin, upkeep and maintenance of the roads, and the green space. So it will be basically a little community where they are going to be responsible in the future for the maintenance and upkeep of the infrastructure. So I think the city's job in that is making sure that we get that relayed on all the recorded documents. I mean, we know that homeowners unfortunately don't always do their due diligence before they buy a house. And we know that in the future, that conversation will happen to say, 20, 30 years down the road, city come and pave our road.
Yeah.
And so what we want to try to do now is make sure that, it gets recorded properly, and, we get the information to at least the property owners who are going to be buying these lots. Now, again, this is preliminary plat approval. This is not a recorded document. But at the time that we get to final plat approval, we want to make sure that it is very clear what the homeowner's responsibility is going to be.
Is that common?
No.
I-
But I will say that it's not, but what we have seen, since I've been in this position is, we really haven't had a lot of brand-new subdivisions. We've had, finishing subdivisions that have been started or future phases of older subdivisions where we knew that those streets would be accepted into city maintenance. The creation of homeowners associations to maintain green space and ponds is something that the city put in our regulations 4 years ago. So we have moved to that trend where the city just doesn't have the manpower and the finances, to be quite honest, to maintain every little subdivision's green spaces and retention ponds. So we have moved to kind of that trend where we want that responsibility to be on the individual property owners or an HOA. And so they they have signed a long-term maintenance agreement where that homeowners association will be the responsible party. In terms of also, is it typical? The other thing is that we don't see a lot of infill development. And so I think that's the difference here, is that we're getting affordable housing and infill of some of what I call the downtown area that would not otherwise be developed.
With it being zoned R3, if I didn't do something like this, then, I'm gonna bring back a bunch of apartments and we can shift it and move it and all that, and I don't know, it just seems like a better fit for the downtown area for us, just for Berea in general. I'd lived in a fairly successful one of these in North Carolina. There was about 50 units, and we owned the roads, the homeowners association. So the key to it is a good homeowners association. It being set up correctly, collecting. I think in that a third party actually managed ours, so they tarred the road every year, and they, if you put a sign out in the yard, they're on you. If you just whatever, it was a little more senior of a community. I'm going to say most of us were probably over 50, and not a lot of kids in there. There's really no through traffic, so shouldn't be a big deal with the intersections. It's pretty much the 41 people that live there, or couples, or whomever, would be about all that's there, and some visitors. So I think it's ideal for that. But thoughts, concerns?
So I applaud the infill and affordable housing, part of that. So what about, Amanda, like public safety, fire and garbage collection, anything, because these are all private roads?
So we sent this out, fire department and police for that matter are part of our development review process. And I did not get any comments from them that they, that this was gonna be unmanageable for them.
I think from the fire point of view, he just wanted to be sure he located a fire hydrant. I think that was something we discussed, but
Right.
he may have me move one a certain place or something, but other than that, we didn't. Because, it's 20-some feet wide, so it's not like, and they're not parking on the street. I couldn't take it if they all parked on the street.
They couldn't take it if they all park on
No,
the street.
I couldn't take it either, so. I'd hate to drive through it, so,
Yeah, and these are not one-way streets, correct?
no, they're not. No, they can pass.
I do have a question about the retention area there. And if you'd go back to the overhead photo. So it looks like it's in that, lower right-hand corner. Are you intending to remove those trees? I don't know exactly where the property line is there.
Somewhere where those trees are would be where the pond is.
Yeah,
Then it'll drain out to the, I guess, the south side there, right in there.
yeah, that's my other question. I mean, have you talked with Fahi? And because, from the contours and what I know of that, if this retention area cannot hold, the water for some extreme event, then it's going to run over onto Fahi property and ultimately into that pond.
So it was designed, Dwayne's here, but it's designed to withstand the extreme event that we had recently, actually. And your guys, the engineer from Thoroughbred, he's pretty much a real stickler about the review process. So all I can tell you is, per the engineering design, there shouldn't be an issue. He for sure won't sign if it is. So.
Yeah, well, I guess it hasn't gone in front of stormwater or anybody like that, city engineer.
So he's gotten the submittal. I just haven't heard back from him on the final approval. But, certainly that's one of those things that until we get that right and until it meets the city's regulations, he's not gonna approve it or sign it, and it just wouldn't move forward until they get that approval.
Doing it contingent should cover that anyway, shouldn't it?
Right, so same as sewer and water. I look at it as, stormwater is basically a utility. We don't call it that, but that's what it is. And so until it gets those proper approvals, it won't be approved, and those entities that are the technical reviewers won't give them approval or sign their plans.
Not that it matters to us tonight, I'm just curious what the construction is of the units.
What the
Yeah, like finishes and stuff
Oh,
like that.
there'll be brick and there'll be some vinyl, not a lot, but there'll be brick on the fronts and hopefully 50% brick and then some vinyl or hardy board. And they have some little porches on them and trying to make them more like maybe a little frame construction, kind of like I don't know how you'd say it, but just kind of cute look, a little more appealing, not just all little shotgun homes in there. It wouldn't be that at all.
Okay.
Well, the idea behind the HOA and with it being low maintenance is that, the green space is taken care of and we got to maintain the pond and the streets. So hopefully everybody will get along well, right? 41 people can always agree.
Amanda, so the parking is in the front, right?
Correct.
2 cars,
Yes, 2 per unit.
2 per unit, yeah. So it'd be, but now it being a private street, how do you keep people from parking on the road?
So what they'll do is they'll put it in their deed restrictions.
Okay,
Which means that, it's one of those unfortunate things where we ask most every development to put in their deed restrictions that there should not be on-street parking, because I don't care how wide you build that road. When you get people parking on both sides, we get complaints from the garbage trucks and the school buses, right, and the residents. So, so generally speaking, we ask people to put that in the deed restrictions. What that means, though, is that even if it were a public street, the only way the city, through the police department, would be able to ticket people is by city ordinance. which has to be done by city council. Typically, that's not done until years and years later, when the residents have just, they come and prove that there truly is a problem, and then the city might, agree to make it a city ordinance. We certainly have done that to some streets. Kind of in the interim, though, is we ask them to put it on their deed restrictions, and the HOA and the individual property owners are responsible for their own enforcement of those deed restrictions.
Good luck with that.
Yes, I agree.
Yes, I agree. But now, we've had subdivisions where they had a HOA and they had people who were sticklers for the rules, and they would, go tape it to their door, a copy of the deed restrictions to people's doors. So I think you gotta have a good leader that's willing to call people out.
That's why I'm married. My wife will do that.
Cynthia, I think there was a commercial that time where Cynthia was measuring people's mailboxes.
I think they're called Karen.
Yeah, the commercial called her Cynthia, but yeah. You definitely need a Karen.
So the outside is the two-story, and then the inside just like a ranch.
Yes, sir.
So you got for the elderly and for, very accessible. And then the road's wide, I guess.
So the road, so as far as we know, he's got enough room with the width and stuff like that to get the trash trucks in there, in case they ever needed a fire truck.
Yeah, he's got 20,
Yeah, so he's got the,
he's got 25 feet, 24 feet of pavement, so it's 25 back to back.
and the school buses are gonna pick up at the end more how they set that up, so nobody, yeah. And so we just need to get a variance to be able to,
For the driveway entrances, and,
Okay.
we can't do that until business session. We'll actually vote on it in business session,
okay.
and, they can formally request the variance and that. I just wanted to bring that up in case that was, a topic of concern.
We've been using the word variance and the word waiver, or is that, we
It's
using
a
that?
waiver.
Okay. So we'll make sure we're not,
It's a waiver from our requirements, yep.
any other questions or comments? I guess, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Am I next too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. You get me twice tonight.
Ah. All right, so we're moving on to preliminary plat for 205 Stony Creek Way. Is that correct?
So, I'm Pat Sowers. We have, it's a 12.6 acre tract, and I believe it's a PUD. I believe this block was designated for multifamily, if I'm correct. I think that's right, isn't it, Amanda? And so we kind of mirrored what was there. We put duplexes around the perimeter, and we left a remainder tract in the middle that was for some of future apartments. I believe on the plat, what we did was, we didn't want to enter right off the street with driveway after driveway, so the ones going up the hill there, we are coming off the main drag there, and then the ones across the bottom there, and I can't see that, I guess it's Wildwood. We put a right-of-way access around the back of the properties. The duplexes are design where they kind of have like two fronts on them, have a little porch in the back, and then they have garages in the back that the people actually enter in from behind. So we don't have, it's a pretty view there on that ridge, and I didn't want a bunch of driveways off that main drag, and I'm not sure that would have been the right thing to do anyway. So, thoughts?
Just from a staff perspective, again, how many total lots are there in
There's
this?
just 18.
Okay. So it basically wraps around Winding Branch Drive, which is on this west side, and then on the south side along Wildwood Way. Again, they have proposed driveway entrances off of Winding Branch Drive, but because this is a main boulevard entrance or thoroughfare into all of this development, we did ask them not to put driveways off of Wildwood Way. You know, what we don't want is people coming around this a little turnabout here and then having to stop for people turning in their driveways and all that. So there'll be a little privately owned access easement. So that's a shared easement along the back side of those. It's shown on the plat, excuse me, as this little section here. That is going to be an access easement for them to be able to pull into these lots. And of course, we've not at this point seen what the building construction plans look like, but it sounds like they will have garages on them.
They will.
So, so that we shouldn't, you know, there should never be a time where we're blocking this road. I'm sure that'll be part of their deed restrictions as well. This was existing infrastructure in terms of the roads, so no new road construction. That will be city maintenance. The stormwater was existing infrastructure that sheds either, some of it sheds back to this retention pond, some of it to existing storm boxes that are along these two streets. So we're in the same scenario where they turned in the plans and they are still out for review for sewer, water, and then for sewer and water. And then on stormwater, we're just, I wanted to run everything as far as the existing infrastructure by our city engineer. So I've sent him all the as-builts and just want him to confirm that he doesn't see anything different than what we thought was put in and accepted in the past. So we would, they would be seeking a contingent approval based on sewer, water, and stormwater from those technical reviewers. It is in a PUD zone. It was, so in those PUDs, it's really just a mix of commercial and all different types of residential uses. So you've got single family, you've got apartments and duplexes. And so this was kind of shown on that PUD map as multifamily. Generally speaking, we allow anything that's less dense than what was approved. So it was approved for multifamily. They are proposing duplexes.
These are all duplexes?
Yes, sir.
Maybe the two-story townhomes with the garage basement in the back of it.
No, sir, they're all ranches
All
with, yeah,
These would have
with the garage in the back.
So tell me about lot number 19, its future development.
Is that the remainder?
Yeah.
It's designated for some apartments that are future use, which will have to come back to you.
And remind me, I can't remember, did you already do the minor plat to to separate that off, or,
Did we do the minor?
okay, yes, so they'll basically cut that lot off of this tract.
And what will be the access to, to that future development?
So it'll be at the bottom, and then I think at the very top, we were leaving enough space to get out as well. Right there where that power line easement is. I think is there 300 feet there? I can't see that from here. Right there. The power line's overhead and,
I gotta find C1, hang on.
you see it, Dwayne?
Well, I didn't know if if the
177.
If the 24-foot ingress and egress easement was ultimately going to serve that too.
No, it won't serve that middle.
Okay,
It will only serve the duplexes.
okay.
There'll be a little grass bump, something. And then the future, they'll have to set off of that because that end of the easement will be the property owner, so that'll be the back property line. So the next building will have to be so many feet away. So no, it won't serve that at all.
Okay.
No, those duplex people will be really angry if I did that.
So how many units total is there in that area? Do you know a number? Like, not just this, but I'm saying in entirety.
I have no idea.
Don't know.
No idea. There's several duplexes there that have been there for a long time.
These guys might know. Rodney, do you have any? That's what I think. We're close to 300 right now.
Counting single family as well.
In the whole
That's what I was
development.
talking
So,
to. Yeah, the whole thing.
yeah, so if we look at
One in,
everything that's in Stony Creek, so all these houses and back in here, we're right at 300.
And we still only have that one means of egress for that whole development, right?
It's wide.
Yeah, I know. We've had this conversation
Oh, yeah.
at least several
I must
times
have missed that one.
in the past.
Yeah, and so let me just recap, because every time we talk about Stony Creek, we talk about number of units and one way in and one way out. So, so now's a good lead in to that conversation, and it'll save Rodney from having to have the same conversation, right? I think he's had this one more than a few times. So what the city does not have, what's in our regulations is that you shall have more than one way in and out, unless it's otherwise approved. And so when Stony Creek was a dream, its very first rendition of a preliminary plat, everything that's built as of today, including the next phase that we're going to talk about, the final plat that we're going to talk about next, had existing infrastructure that was on that preliminary plat. So it did get approved with one way in and one way out. And, but what we've talked about in the past is, this is what we consider a boulevard entrance. It is basically 2 lanes. It's wide enough to be 2 lanes in and 2 lanes out, so that if there were an emergency situation here, you could shut off one side and still have passable ingress and egress on one side or the other of that median. It is my understanding that there is a turn lane that is going to be installed this spring. And so what that is going to do is that is going to provide a deceleration lane. If you're coming northbound and you want to make that right turn into Stony Creek, you'll now have a turn lane there to be able to better accommodate that kind of stopping of traffic right there. And then in a future phase, with with Rodney Short, who is developing kind of this northern section. There is potential for, as this development progresses to the north, that it would be able to connect to Crestview subdivision, but not for everybody traffic. It would really just be like, more like a crash gate for emergency vehicles. That's been a long time conversation between the city and the county and who maintains what, and we don't want your people driving through our subdivision and vice versa. And so, that's been kind of a compromise to be able to provide for emergency services and them to access the subdivision from a different location. And then it does have a right-of-way out to Old US 25, but that's pretty far back there. So there would be a lot of development, there's just a lot of land to cover between those two. But there is technically, if I remember correctly, on the plat, a right-of-way that is recorded over to Old US 25.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Two crash gates. Yep. Okay. So two. So Mountain View and Crestview. Yep. And again, both of those are county subdivisions, and so again, you kind of get into. They don't want the traffic driving through there, and who maintains it and all that. So we've had the conversation. We're trying to. As best we can, accommodate, plan for an emergency situation out there. Yep, yeah, he's right. Police and fire have been involved. The city and county, officials have all been involved in those conversations to try to figure out. But the state has said they will not give another entrance off of 25. So, that's a moot point because they've made that very clear that they can't have another exit onto 25.
Even the old 25 like we were talking about.
Oh, no, Old 25 possibly, but I mean along Richmond Road,
Okay,
they won't allow it.
right.
So, and did I hear you say that for this, we just need to apply the contingency of approval for, water, sewer, and storm? Okay. No, there's no waivers involved. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Sellers before he gets scoots away? Thank you, sir. Next item, final plat, Stony Creek subdivision, Unit 3, Phase 1A, lots 18, 19, 61 through 85.
Come on, Mike.
I'm Colton McGlone. I'm representing Vantage Engineering. We work for Stony Creek Holdings, who's the developer. Rodney Short over there is who we work for. We are just wanting final approval for the infrastructure and lots that we've currently put in. I'm just here if you all have any questions or comments, concerns. I believe that in our DRT meeting there was no real problems. Amanda can tell me if I was wrong. I was on vacation when that occurred, so.
no, that's correct. So, from a staff perspective, well, on the aerial, just so you know, let me get my bearings here. So my map's not really updated, but this would be a phase, called Stillwater Drive. And it's a road that currently exists, from the end of Stony Creek Way and connects up to Middle Creek Way. And so the Planning Commission approved the preliminary plat in August of 2022. So just a few months ago, they have been hard at work to get these 27 lots ready for approval. They do have sewer and water installed, electrical, and installed, tested, and approved. Electrical conduits are in, and, correct?
Oh, yes, the conduit's in, and I believe are they pulling electric right now? They haven't, okay.
Okay. My team went out and inspected the roads and curb and gutter and all that last week. And so all the infrastructure's in, installed, inspected, and approved. They have submitted their as-built drawings, as required. Those have been, distributed to all the utility providers. We had the development review team meeting for this last week. No deficiencies from that meeting, and so what this final plat will do is it will be the recorded document that allows them to define the individual lots. It also defines the boundaries for a detention basin P5. So if you look on the south end of the plat, there's a easement here, an access to a detention pond. This pond actually is not, doesn't serve this phase of construction, but it is already constructed and built and approved. And so, so they went ahead and just outline the boundaries for the final plat. We do have a stormwater maintenance agreement, a long-term maintenance agreement that is recorded for who's going to maintain this pond in the future. And so they are seeking approval of their final plat for these 27 lots and P5 detention lot boundary.
No waivers, no contingencies?
We'll talk about that when we get to the bond. So I may as well talk about that now. So if you'll look at this sheet, so part of final plat approval is that we establish a bond or approve a bond amount for incomplete improvements. Generally speaking, that is your top coat of pavement and your sidewalks. So what we've done in the past with Stony Creek and other phases, I will tell you that this sheet's a little confusing, so let me work you through this. And I'm gonna go to this aerial map because it's gonna help me to kind of outline this. So part of final plat approval, again, is setting the bond amount. Because it's the same developer, he has actually completed, and our maps, I'm hoping our new maps are coming out in the next few months, because it's hard to talk about these when it doesn't look like there's any houses, but in reality, there's houses here, and there's houses here, and there's houses here, and so all this has been built out. This was Unit 2, Block 1, Phase 1 and 2. So basically, that was from right past this little roundabout, and it encompasses all of this right here. That was Unit 2, Block 1. And so I've been in discussion with Rodney. We've actually been out there. We've made a punch list for street acceptance into city maintenance. And so the contingency will be that they want to get these streets approved and then just transfer that bond amount to this new phase of construction. We have done that in the past. It is ample to cover the amount we need. In terms of that, we're still holding, so final coat of pavement has not been put on this section of Wildwood Way. So that carries forward each time until that's accepted into city maintenance. We've got this little section, and then the new section would come to a bond amount of $192,750, and I did round that, Rodney, to a few dollars and not cents. So they need $192,750. They currently have a bond for $293,445, and want to just transfer that same bond to this next phase upon acceptance of that phase into the city's maintenance, which would ultimately let us release that bond. So the contingency is not for the plat. The contingency is that we won't let them record that plat until the bond gets transferred to this phase. Clear as mud.
Phase 1A, is that what you're talking about?
Uh-huh. So it'll essentially get released from Unit 2, Block 1, Phase 1 and 2, and transfer to Unit 3, Phase 1A.
Surface sidewalk contingency.
So on the business meeting agenda, why are we not dealing with the bond and letter of credit before we do the final plat?
We absolutely can do that, and that probably makes sense to do that, so that we get that captured. So, I think, I mean, they're both on the agenda. I don't see any reason that we couldn't just, let's, in the business session, discuss the bond, get a vote on the amount, and then, so basically change 3 and 4 around. Items 3 and 4. That's probably a better way to do it.
And when we do that, we're looking at the bond, well, never mind. Be easier for us if you just took out a new bond and got rid of the old one.
It's not easy for you.
You know, from a staff perspective, these bonds are the hardest thing that we do,
I know.
is staying on top of them, so. Yeah, they're all, they're the hard, I mean, they're the most time-consuming thing that we do of anything.
Just drop your firstborn off at the
Yeah.
office and
No, I'll take her, 'cause she's a worker.
Amanda, I got a question.
Okay.
So he's gonna be running a lot of heavy equipment through that Wildwood Way for a long time,
Well,
man.
but the reality is he has been.
Yeah.
You know, they have been, for all of these other phases. Okay.
As well. So I can speak to the construction 20 years ago. Wildwood Way is actually thicker than a lot of the other streets. it is so thick that it has to be 2 base coat or courses.
Yeah.
So it's actually, what she spoke earlier, it actually still needs its second coat of base and then a coat of surface. Yeah, and in the past 20 years, I mean, we've drove in and out a lot, and I don't see any failings or anything. So, I mean, I think it can handle the traffic load that it's taken, and that is a reason that we haven't put surface on some of the other streets, because the construction traffic does go that way. And instead of tearing up the final surface coat when we turn it over to you all, we try to, if there is going to be a problem, it'll be in the base, and we could remediate that problem before putting surface on it.
Yeah, that was my point.
And then on 25, like she said, we will be working on it in the spring, and it's a right turning lane and a left turning lane. So it'll be actually a turning lane from no matter which way you're traveling, yeah, north or south.
Thank you for clarifying.
There'll eventually be a traffic light out there, won't there, Amanda, with all the all the people living out there?
Have they mentioned,
So the turning lane plans have been approved by KYTC,
Yeah.
and they didn't make any mention of
Traffic light,
a traffic light yet, because so the rock that's out there now, that turning lane plan was approved 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and we submitted a new one that's been reapproved, and they still didn't say anything. So at this time, and I believe they were accounting for full. We actually had to do a traffic study. We had to sit out there and count cars for a while, but I believe even at full development, they didn't act like we would need one. But like she said, we will plan on tying into Crestview one day with the emergency services, and then we do own lot 61, I believe, of Mountain View Estates, to where we'd be able to put a crash gate there as well.
Is 25, it's gonna be widened in the near future, in that, all the way to Bria, or is it just to,
I don't know, the section,
just right now,
that's
just Duncannon Ridge?
currently being widened is from Pumpkin Run to the 421-25 split.
We're getting left out.
So, I always heard that was the case, but I don't know. That's not what is currently under construction.
As long as it took us to get the bypass, I'd say it'd be a while.
Is there any plan for a left turn lane coming southbound on 25?
Yeah, so that's what I was saying, is that if you're northbound, there'll be a right turning lane
Yeah.
there, and then if you're coming southbound, there'll be I believe I don't want to speak to how long it is, but there is a left turn lane traveling that direction as well. So hopefully it'll keep cars from backing up like it has been some. So
That road's wide enough, you can probably have 2 lanes going in that wildwood. It's going in there.
Any other comments or questions for final plat Stony Creek subdivision, Unit 3, Phase 1-A, and/or the bond letter of a credit approval? Thank you.
thank you.
I guess that concludes our work session. And we ready to go into business session?
We are.
All right, I hereby call the Berea Planning Commission business session for Tuesday, December 27th, 2022 into call to order. Recognize any visitors for anything not on the agenda. I see none. Minutes of November 29th, 2022. Chair would welcome a motion to accept or amend those minutes.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes as presented.
Is there a second? Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Jeff, for the second. I'm sorry, Mike.
I get left out every time.
All those in favor of approving those minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? All right. Moving on, new business, preliminary plat 413 Oak Street by Arbor Woods LLC for 41 townhomes. They're requesting a,
Martin, I can speak to it if,
what's that?
I can give us a recap
Okay.
for the minutes.
All right,
All right.
please, thank you.
So, preliminary plat, they're requesting approval of a preliminary plat located at 413 Oak Street. So as we discussed in our work session, it is about a 4-acre tract located on Oak Street and Morning View. They are proposing, again, 41 townhome lots. It is a R3 zone, but the development would conform to the R1T setbacks. They would have private streets, privately owned and maintained detention basin and green space that would be not accepted into city maintenance, but would be owned and maintained by the individual property owners of that development. There are 2 entrances and exits on Oak Street and 1 on Morning View. We have been through the development review team approval, and they are seeking an approval based on a contingent approval based on sewer, water, and stormwater final plans being accepted by those technical reviewers. And they are seeking a waiver for our regulation that requires driveways to not be closer than 50 feet from an intersection.
Thank you. Commissioners need any more clarification of what's before us? The chair would accept a motion.
What she said.
Yeah, there you go. Whatever she said, man.
So, the motion would be to approve preliminary plat with waiver of sewer,
The stormwater.
A waiver for the driveway locations closer than 50 feet.
okay. So we need a waiver for driveways closer than 50 feet.
And we need that approval being contingent upon sewer, water, and stormwater approvals.
With contingency approval of sewer, water, and stormwater.
Thank you for that motion. Melissa, did you get that down? All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. Next item,
That was a toughie.
preliminary plat for 205 Stony Creek Way, Stony Creek subdivision, Tract 2, Unit 1, Block 1 by Shady Creek Farms.
The owner is requesting approval of the preliminary plat located at Stony Creek subdivision, Tract 2, Unit 1, Block 1, with the contingencies for approval of sewer, water, and stormwater.
Is it clear before the commission what is before us? then the chair would accept a motion. This one's a lot easier, Greg.
Yeah. I can't write it down fast enough as you're saying it.
So the motion would be to approve preliminary plat, 205 Stony Creek Way, Stony Creek subdivision, Track 2, Unit 1, Block 1. And are there contingencies or?
Contingent upon approval of sewer, water, and stormwater plans.
Contingent on approval of sewer, water, and stormwater
Yep.
plan approval.
Thank you. Did you get that, Melissa? All right. Is there a second to that motion?
Second that.
All right. Motion's been made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Congratulations. All right. Number 3, Chair's discretion. I'm going to move the bond letter of a credit amount approval for Stony Creek subdivision, Unit 3, Phase 1-A, lots 18 and 19, and lots 61 through 85 by Stony Creek Holdings, LLC.
So as part of a final plat approval for Stony Creek subdivision, Unit 3, Phase 1A, the Planning Commission must set must accept a bond amount. In this case, the developer wishes to transfer an existing bond from Stony Creek subdivision, Track 2, Unit 1, oh, no, hold on, sorry. From Stony Creek, Unit 2, Block 1, Phases 1 and 2, by the city accepting that infrastructure into the city maintenance and thereby releasing that bond. We would transfer that existing bond in the amount of $293,445 to Stony Creek Unit 3, Phase 1A, and the entrance at Wildwood Way. And so, in my opinion, that motion needs to state that the Planning Commission would accept the current bond amount of $293,445 upon for Unit 3, Phase 1A, contingent upon that current bond being released from the previous phase. And if you just want to say previous phase, we will capture that in the minutes.
Is that clear?
You guys make it difficult at the holidays.
Well,
Right.
so what I heard was that the Planning Commission would accept, transfer a letter of credit in the amount of $293,445 from the previous bonds related to first section of Wildwood Way, Unit 2, Block 1, Phases 1 and 2, once they are accepted by the city, and that those letter of credits would transfer to the Stony Creek subdivision, Unit 3, Phase 1-A. So,
You got it?
I got it. Somebody else want to repeat it? Melissa, you got it?
Or a so moved might work.
Somebody want to so move?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Ron.
All right. There's been a motion made in center, second. I will not repeat the motion again. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. So, having approved the letter of credit, now we just move to the final plat for Stony Creek subdivision, Unit 3, Phase 1-A for lots 18, 19, and lots 61 through 85.
All right, so the developer is requesting final plat approval for Stony Creek Unit 3, Phase 1A, lots 18 and 19, and 61 through 85, with no contingencies, I'm sorry, with a contingency that the bond be transferred as previously, what's the word? Approved.
Yeah.
So then when it,
To paraphrase, once the city accepts,
Sewer and water.
once city accepts Phase 1 and 2 of Unit 2, Block 1, then that sets in motion everything else.
So let's, so probably a motion would say final plat approval based on, the transfer of the bond as agreed upon.
Is there so moved?
So we make a motion to approve final plat, Stony Creek subdivision, Unit 3, Phase 1A, lots 18 and 19, and 61 through 85, contingent upon bond letter of credit amount approval, Unit 3, Phase 1A.
except for we took the,
Yeah.
Think that'll work?
So moved.
You got that, Melissa? It's been a motion made. Is there a second? Thank you, Jeff. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And I believe that is it for the business agenda. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So, all right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Good night.